You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome in, everybody, to Toronto Sports Rush right here on the Bet Rivers Network. Mondays with McGuire, EJ Hradek here with Pierre McGuire, who is over across the pond, as they say, over in Ireland. Pierre, tell the viewers what the heck you're doing in Ireland.
It's my third trip over here. I've developed an amazing relationship with the people that own and run the Belfast Giants. Stevie Thornton, who played at Boston University, and Robert Fitzpatrick, who's the owner and basically the CEO of the company. The Odyssey Trust is the ultimate owner of it all. And they started a men's tournament here many, many years ago called the Friendship Four. And now they've expanded the Friendship Four into the women's side of it. So I was just here in late November for the men's Friendship Four. Now I'm here for the women's Friendship Four, and it's going to be really an amazing event. The initial one with Harvard, Minnesota Duluth, Quinnipiac, and Boston University. And right now I'm in a place where we always start the tournament at the Harry Lemon Pub in Dublin. Tomorrow we'll all make our journey up to Belfast, which is about a 2-hour train ride, about an hour and 40-minute bus ride. Everybody will make their way up there, and the teams will get going. But it's an amazing opportunity to help grow the game, especially on the women's side, and I'm so happy to be here, EJ.
All right, well, listen, have a great time over there. It sounds like it's a lot of fun. I am in St. Paul, Minnesota for the World Juniors and enjoying the first couple of days of that. I'll ask you a couple of World Juniors questions because I know you're always watching it. You were part of the broadcast for many, many years for TSN. But let me start with the Leafs because we're out of the Christmas break. The schedule is relentless, Pierre, right now. They came out, they had 2 games and got a win and then an overtime loss. But the last 3 games, signs of life. They've won 2-0-1 in their last 3. And the good news is they're only 2 points out of a playoff spot. The bad news is they're sitting last in their division, second to last in the conference, and there are 6 teams between them and that playoff spot. So where do you see the Leafs as we're nearing the end of the calendar year 2025?
Improving. And I think part of it was they got scared straight when Mark Savard got fired. I didn't like the firing. Yeah. I will never endorse that. I didn't think it was at the appropriate time. But I understand there had to be some urgency internally. This firing created urgency. It got the players' attention. Yeah. I think Mark was a popular person internally with the players and with the staff. And so rather than just jettisoning a player, they jettisoned the coach, who they think they were able to replace with Stevie Sullivan. Now the power play in the last 2 games has 3 power play goals. Matthew Nice has 2 of those power play goals. They got 2 against Ottawa and 1 yesterday against Detroit. So maybe they're starting to make some progress. And they did it without Willie Nylander, which I think is a huge thing for them as well. Mateus Michelli looks much improved. I think the Leafs are going to make the playoffs. I think the Leafs are going to be a tough team to play in the playoffs. And the biggest thing that I see right now is there's more of a physical sense of urgency from this team compared to what I saw before Christmas. I think the Pittsburgh Penguin game just before Christmas on the 23rd, a game that started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, woke those guys up because they got a coach fired. And I think they just said, you know what, that's on us, and we got to be better. And I think they have been better.
Well, you are definitely looking at it through the glass half full situation because I mean it is crazy, Pierre, to think, as I said at the start here, that like they're 2 points out of the playoffs, but they're last in their division and they're second to last in the conference. And there's all those teams that climb over. I mean, the Buffalo Sabres have gotten red hot. They've won 8 in a row, so they've kind of moved up the standings. But again, they're in the Atlantic. Detroit has 49 points. The Leafs have 40. That's the whole division from top to bottom. It is just continues to be a crazy year. And while I agree with you that if they get the playoffs, they could be a tougher team to deal with, I just think they got a big hill to climb that they have created.
No question. It's a massive hill to climb. They have created this problem for themselves. They started the season terribly. I didn't see any of their training camp, but I did watch their preseason games. I didn't like their preseason games. I thought a lot of guys were floating through preseason. I was shocked by that, and it carried over to the regular season. That's food for thought for them going forward after this year, whether they make the playoffs or not. That's a whole other issue. But here's what I am convinced of more than anything. I see now with guys like Lawton playing better physically, like Nicky Roy playing better physically. Johnny Tavares yesterday, again, was phenomenal. He's probably their best player. So he's playing great. And now you're starting to see Auston get mad. I was really not happy with the way Auston Matthews was playing. I bet you the Leafs weren't happy, and I bet you the fans weren't happy. But the last 3 games, Auston Matthews looks angry. He looked angry at the end of the Pittsburgh game. He definitely looked angry the other night at home when they were playing. And I would tell you right now, against Ottawa, and then last night in Detroit, I thought he looked angry again. So I'm more excited for them because now they have the slotting down the middle, which is going to help them a lot.
Yeah, certainly like that. I think is the thing they can really cling on to. They've gotten a little healthier on defense with Tanev back in the mix right now, so that's got to help them. But again, it's a tough spot. But let me ask you about the goaltending because Stolarz has been out of the mix for a while now, and again with injuries with the Leafs. The guy could be on the moon for all we know. It's just we don't get a lot of information. Joseph Woll and Hildeby have kind of held down the fort. In fact, the plan when Stolarz and Woll are together, it's a really good duo. But that really hasn't occurred for much more than a few days this season, with Woll being out of the mix early. How do you feel about the goaltending duel of Woll and Hildeby right now? Because it doesn't look like Stolarz is going to be back anytime soon.
Great point. And that's a big blow to them. Obviously, they missed Stolarz in the playoffs last year. I know you talked about it. I talked about it with you. When Stolarz went down in Game 3, really not being available to play, that was the whole series. And you could see the series swung right there. So I watched Hildeby play. I arrived in Belfast or in Dublin early this morning. I watched the Leaf game when I got off the plane. And the thing that I saw is Hildeby at the end of the game in particular, his team gets outshot 36-27, and I'm watching him make save after save when Detroit's really putting pressure on at the tail end of the game. Eventually, that helps him get a point. Now, he makes the egregious mistake of not going out to play the puck with 2 hands on the stick. He thinks he's just going to bat it out to Auston Matthews. He's going to get a breakaway. Unfortunately, he's not strong enough on the puck. Simon Edvinsson, who, by the way, is a marvel. He's playing phenomenal hockey for Detroit, scores in the 3-on-3 and eventually takes the extra point. But I think the goaltending tandem with Woll and Hildeby, EJ, is good enough right now with how hard the Leafs look like they're going to start to play. And if they continue to play just consistent, I saw a great quote. I think it was Nick Suzuki. He was talking about Jacob Fowler. Mm-hmm. He said, the best part – no, sorry, it's Brendan Gallagher. He says the best part about this kid, Jacob Fowler, he makes the saves he's supposed to make. Yeah. When I watch Joe Woll play and I watch Dennis Hildeby play, they make the saves they're supposed to make.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned, right, that little gaffe that Hildeby had there and it led to the goal in overtime. I mean, that's how tight it is, Pierre, that we may look back at a play like that in the middle of April, and maybe that 1 point is the difference between them. That's how tight it is. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully they can get Stolarz back at some point, but those 2 guys have held up so far. We'll see if they can continue to do so. They're going to see an old friend coming up on Tuesday night, Sheldon Keefe and the New Jersey Devils on Tuesday night. And just I can't even say like this is a big game. Every game is a big game for the Leafs right now. And so they got the Devils and they got the Jets this week. What do you make of those 2 matchups coming up?
Well, every game's big for New Jersey, too. The Jack Hughes injury set them back a long way, and they didn't get a lot of consistent goaltending. Jake Allen's actually been better than Markstrom in goal for New Jersey. I think you would agree with me on that. Yep. So that's something that, New Jersey's going to come in urgent looking for points. I don't think anybody thought Philadelphia would be where they are this season. Rick Tock has done a magnificent job coaching that team. So New Jersey, a lot of people thought they'd be higher up in the Metro standings. They're not there. They're not where they want to be. So it's a huge game for them. Winnipeg's been an utter disappointment. I think you would agree on that. These are 2 massive games for the Leafs. They're both on home ice. Take advantage of the home ice and put the boost in and start to build momentum going into the first part of January before the Olympic break. But I've been so inspired. I think the biggest thing to me with Toronto is they needed something to wake them up. There was just this malaise around the group. You could see it. And I watch every one of their games like you do. Yeah. And all of a sudden, that malaise is gone. And I don't know if it had to be Mark Savard, but maybe that's the positive thing because clearly they've been a better team since Mark got let go. And it's not because Mark's a bad coach. I think they needed to get woken up, and I think that's what woke them up.
Yeah, well, we know this much, Pierre. There is no room for error between now and the end of the season. They need to find as many points as they can, and it's going to be it's going to be challenging to get through January, and then after the Olympic break, it'll be a sprint to the finish. So the good news is they are a little healthier. They are playing better. So with that, let me ask you about what I'm involved with here in St. Paul, Minnesota, the World Juniors, and I know it's near and dear to your heart. You love watching the young kids play. As I said at the start, you were part of the broadcast for TSN for many years. Team Canada, I think they have a loaded roster this year. Dale Hunter is running the show there. They had a really entertaining game against Team Czechia. I'll tell you, Pierre, being at the tournament this year, there haven't been really many blowout games. Man, on the other side, you have Denmark. I think they're going to struggle. They've been handled a little bit. Finland did beat up Latvia pretty good the other day. It was a tough spot for Latvia, second of a back-to-back after really leaving it all out there against Canada in an overtime loss. But where do you think Team Canada is right now with Dale Hunter behind the bench? They've got a couple more games in, on this side before we get to the crossover, and certainly a big game with Finland coming up. I believe that's New Year's Eve.
That is, and that's the big game for them right now. Obviously, Denmark's going to get pulverized. They're going to pulverize Denmark. They're not even going to play nice. Goal differential still matters in the tournament.
Yeah.
I think you know that.
Yeah.
And so that's the part of the tournament that still irks me.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to see teams. You can pull the reins back, but in this format, you can't. And I talked about it for years and years and years. Everybody would get mad at these teams that would steamroll, like the Russians or the Canadians or the U.S. And you'd be like, no, you don't understand how the standings work.
You need the goals.
You need the goals. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. I still think Canada's a favorite to win.
Yeah.
I like the way the Swedes are getting better. Ivar Stenberg, I don't know how many people have watched him or know that name. I know you do because you're doing a great job covering the tournament. This kid's going to be really special. He's somebody to watch. The Swedes have a really balanced team, and their defense is great. But this kid can make a difference. Got a flair for the dramatic. So I think the Swedes have a real good chance. The Americans on home ice. And hopefully the crowds will start to get better in Minnesota as we get deeper into the tournament. I think you would agree it's been a little disappointing in terms of some of the crowds that have been at some of these games. But I think the Americans, the Swedes, and Canada are still the three best teams, and I would expect Canada still the favorite to win.
Yeah, I think the pressure, it's just seemingly always on Canada no matter what happens in these tournaments. Yep. And, the last couple haven't gone well. Last year on home ice in Ottawa, they didn't even make the semifinals. Now, I didn't think that team was particularly well chosen. I didn't think it was particularly well coached. So those things can happen. I think this year is a different story. As I said, I love their lineup. I think they've got a lot of experience. Plus, they have, some really high. I think they have 18 first-round picks in that lineup, and that's not uncommon for Canada. They've had teams that have that high number of first-round draft picks. But I'm a little more confident in Dale Hunter's ability to coach and get this team to where they want to get to. I mean, how about the Gavin McKenna? Because I'll ask you to get your thoughts on him because it's been an interesting year. He's been at Penn State. I think he's playing fine. I mean, it's a different challenge for him to be playing against older guys at Penn State than it would be rolling up points in the Western Hockey League. Give me your thoughts if you've got any, feeling about the way he has played in these first couple of games.
I see some Macklin Celebrini in him. I don't think he's as mature as Macklin is right now. Macklin was tremendous at BU. I remember watching him at BU at practice. He'd have Lane Hudson feeding them pucks, and he'd just pile drive pucks on goal. And then they would go against one another one-on-one, and you could just see those were two guys who were going to be elite NHL players. I don't think McKenna's there yet right now. I do think he's a top 3 pick, potentially a top 2 pick. I'd like to see him get a little bit more physically involved in games. I'd like to see him be more responsible defensively. But one thing, watch Macklin Celebrini play 5-on-5 defense. That kid is committed, man. Yeah. He is committed. I can't say the same thing about Gavin right now. I do think under Guy Godowski's tutelage at Penn State, he is getting better. But this is a really good Canada team. McKenna's a really good player. I think Stenberg is going to cause some problems. I think Verhoff, even though he's not playing for Canada, might cause some problems for Gavin, whether he goes first or not. It's going to be a sprint right to the end. I don't think there'll be any clear-cut guy until probably the sprint time when we see some of these kids go through the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Pierre, last thing I'll ask you is, we're getting ready for the announcement for Team Canada for the Olympics. That is going to happen on New Year's Eve. Any late thoughts? I know we talked about it last week. Anybody that's that you've had any change of heart in anybody? Anybody you think you want to make a case for here as we come down to the wire?
I'm more convinced than ever before that Macklin Celebrini has to be on this team.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really convinced about that. I know people in Chicago want Connor Bedard on the team. I get it. He's injured right now, unfortunately for him. But Macklin's a complete player. I've always called him this, DJ, Jonathan Toews with way more offense. That's a heck of a player. That's a heck of a player. I go back to watching Toews when he's playing at Shattuck St. Mary's, when he would have been the first overall pick in the Western Hockey League. And the Western Hockey League was prepared to roll over and let him play wherever he wanted to play. He said, no, I'm going to North Dakota. So I'm just telling you, that's how great Toews was. And I think this kid is just as good or better offensively than what Johnny was. So I think he should be on the team. And there's one other guy. I know Winnipeg is vastly underachieving this year. I really believe that. If they didn't have Mark Scheifele on their team right now, they'd be way down in the standings. I think Mark Scheifele should be on that team because he can play wing, he can kill penalties, he can take big face-offs, he can make a difference at center, and he gets you points, and he can I would have Mark Scheifele on it. Those are two guys I think that weren't lead pipe cinched to start the year. I think they should both be on the team now.
Yeah, they got some hard choices for many of these teams, particularly Team Canada and Team USA. It'll be interesting to see what happens as the week progresses. Pierre, have a wonderful time in Ireland. Sounds like a great time there. It should be very interesting for you.
You keep doing a great job at the World Junior, EJ. I look forward to seeing and talking with you soon. And hopefully we'll speaking about those rosters pretty soon for USA and Canada.
Yeah. That's just around the corner for sure. But hey, have a great one in Ireland. I'll be doing fine here in St. Paul. And who knows, maybe we'll end up in the same city one of these days.
I can't wait. Thanks a lot, AJ. Happy New Year.
All right, same to you. That's Pierre McGuire. Mondays with McGuire right here on the Toronto Sports Rush, brought to you by the Bet Rivers Network.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.